I have been open about my reasons for opposing the war. But one of my opponents in this race, Senator Clinton, has tried, I believe, to rewrite history. She voted for a resolution called, and I quote, a resolution to authorize the use of United States armed forces against Iraq. Now she's saying that she wasn't really voting for war. She cast her vote after failing to read the national intelligence estimates on Iraq, a report that raised enough doubts that the majority of Democratic senators who read it voted against the war. We need accountability in our leaders. You can't undo a vote for war just because a war stops being popular.
Obama, in this moment, is prescient. He's prescient. People make this case that Biden is essentially Clinton 2.0, and if Clinton lost, it's very possible that Biden would also bite the bullet. Clinton looked inevitable at one point. Huffington Post on the day that Clinton lost that race had her winning it with a 98% chance. Obama is making an extremely good point. You made a vote for the Iraq war. Own it. Now that the war is not popular, you can't backstep. Listen to this. Ari Fleischer and his Bush's press secretary at the time, in 2005, wrote a book, Taking Heat, in which he talked about a September 4th, 2002 meeting in the White House, where the president asked congressional leaders to support his resolution of force against Iraq. This was the meeting that took place. We want to work with the UN, Bush said. Otherwise, we would have to act unilaterally. The president also told the group that he believed Iraq could eventually be a democracy. One leading Democratic senator who later voted to authorize the use of force against Iraq told the president, I will be with you on the condition that we level with the American people. We'll have to stay in Iraq a while. You're right, Bush said. If you can get it done without staying, we'll give you the Nobel Prize, the senator said. I'll support you, President, he noted. I don't know whether that will help me or hurt me, Bush said, to the room's amusement. That senator who was given that vociferous support, Joe Biden. The words I want you to meditate on here for a moment, though. The president also told the group he believed Iraq could eventually be a democracy. It's right here. I will be with you on the condition we level with the American people. We'll have to stay in Iraq a while. You're right, Bush said. If you can get it done without staying, we'll give you the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, the reason why I'm putting emphasis on that is because it was very clear at this very specific moment where Bush was asking for their support that the person injected, you'll have to stay a while. We'll have to stay a while, meaning we will have to be in Iraq. And if you can do it without the Peace Prize, I'll give you the Nobel Peace Prize. This book, 2005. Now, the reason why I'm showing this book in 2005, because nobody added this. There were no time-traveling editors that went back in order to make this look bad for Joe Biden. This is just reality. This is what took place. It was very clear that Joe Biden was pushing for support for that war. And I've shown the various speeches before where Joe Biden was pushing for support for the war. Even years later. In 2004, it seemed between 2004 and 2005, that's when he seemed to change his mind on it. But for a year or two after that war, Joe Biden was still pushing it. This is Joe Biden in 2002 pushing Bush's point of view.
He may use that. In my judgment, President Bush is right to be concerned about Saddam Hussein's relentless pursuit of weapons of mass destruction and the possibility that he may use them or share them with terrorists.
Now, think about that for the moment. Think about what he just said. Strong men are not fans of terrorists. Think about it for the moment. Think about it in your government sense. You have a central government. Whatever you want to think of those regimes, those are governments. Those central governments, just like your central government, is not a fan of terrorism, especially in totalitarian states. That is not something that they necessarily tolerate. It challenges authority. Saying those two things, that he could give them to terrorists while he's also a strongman, just seems dicey. But even worse, listen to this. This is him essentially backing Bush.
Saddam is dangerous. The world would be a better place without him. But the reason he poses a growing danger to the United States...
But is the world a better place without him? Especially in the way that you went with taking him out. Think about what you're saying here. All of these are questions of judgment. In this moment, he got a briefing from a right-wing neocon president, a Republican. And he's backing that president and the policy perspectives of that right-wing president. All of this goes to issues of judgment, which is why this Iraq vote and Joe Biden's behavior in pushing for that Iraq war, even after the war, matters. Not to mention the lying about it on top of it.
And its allies is that he possesses chemical and biological weapons and is seeking with his $2 billion a year illegally skimmed from the UN Fund for Food, his oil for food program, for peace program, that he is seeking nuclear weapons. And for years now, he has prevented the United Nations inspectors from uncovering those weapons and verifying Iraq's disarmament. And he is in violation of the terms he agreed to, allowing him to stay in power. Considered in the context of the president's speech this week and his address last month to produce missiles and more of those weapons. President Bush did not lash out precipitously at Iraq after 9/11. He did not snub the UN or our allies. He did not dismiss new inspection regimes. He did not ignore Congress. At each pivotal moment, he has chosen a course of moderation and deliberation, and I believe he will continue to do so. At least that is my fervent hope. I wish...
Judgment. Should you have believed Bush to this degree? And what does it say about you if you did believe this right-wing neocon president that is in office? I guess I'm making the point that Joe Biden was pushing for the war. It was clear that Joe Biden was pushing for the war. His speeches made it clear that he was pushing for the war. If at some point he changed his mind, let's just be very clear, for at the very least 2 years afterwards, he was still pushing for the war. So when he makes this argument that I was against it in the beginning, that's a lie. So why on earth is John Kerry going on television saying that Bernie Sanders is misrepresenting Joe Biden's record? I'm going to let John Kerry make this lie for himself. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon, even $1 helps, because this content is brought to you by you. This video was already queued up from yesterday when the repairman got here and rudely interrupted me doing the news. So I'm going to do this clip and I'm going to be expedient about it because I honestly really want to get to one or two things from the debate yesterday. And I have a theory or a hypothesis on Warren's behavior. And I think it fits, at the very least, what we are seeing of her. Let's say it that way. But let's get to this one, and I'll be brief. John Kerry takes a swing at Bernie Sanders. Now, John Kerry is a surrogate for Joe Biden, and this is perfect because my argument has been John Kerry, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton are effectively the exact same person. There's an automaton in the back that dons a mask and goes out to the public. You never see these two at the exact same place at the exact same time. That's a lie, you probably do. But you get my point. All of these guys are third-way Democrats with a similar idea of the world, idea of foreign policy, idea of finance and economics and the economy. Because of such, the guy who was projected himself as somewhat different than that, this hope and change, was Obama. Kerry, Gore, Clinton, all of them lost. It is fitting that Kerry is sitting on the bus with Biden, who is effectively just a fourth member of that group. Listen to John Kerry make the pitch. Glenn Greenwald said, you can look at him and tell he's lying as he tries to cover for Joe Biden. I'll let you be the judge.
Called it appalling that after 18 years, Joe Biden still refuses to admit he was dead wrong in the Iraq War, the worst foreign policy blunder in modern American history. Given what you know about the region and how Iran was essentially empowered by that, why doesn't he just call it a mistake?
Well, I think, in fact, Margaret, I think that Bernie...
Now, to be fair, on the debate stage last night, the heat must have been getting to Joe Biden. Meaning, this must have been something where he at the very least acknowledged, okay, this is a threat. Because he comes out and says, the vote was a mistake. He says that. The catch here is, though, he says, but Bush lied to us. Bush lied to us. I just showed you in the book. Just showed you in the book. Nobody went back in time to make that book to make Joe Biden look bad. Where Joe Biden was essentially saying, we will have to stay in Iraq. He knew it from jump. Now, whatever you want to think of Joe Biden has been in politics at that time for what, 30, 40 years? And you're telling me that he's looking at Bush and Bush is telling him this and he's like, oh, he suckered me. He was perfectly aware of what that meant. Meaning, he was perfectly aware in the political sense that what this person is talking about, A, this person is a neocon, B, the people who are around him are outright hawks. And what he is telling me, he knows that they were going to have to stay in Iraq. All of this changing of reality, this retracting history of sorts, or revisionist history. I was alive during this time. This isn't something I had to read in a book. I was alive at this time. I was alive for the first Iraq war. I was a child, but I was alive for it. But I was aware in the second one. What John Kerry is saying here is patently not true. But Joe Biden did come out and say it was a mistake last night.
Regrettably, is distorting Joe's record in the following sense. I mean, he doesn't have what Joe Biden has, which is 8 years of sitting on the National Security Council and demonstrating his judgment, whether it was on his leadership dealing with the migration that was flowing across our border and helping to resolve that with the presidents of those countries, or his
you mean with the mass deportations? Is that what he's talking about? When he said that, I thought, are you talking about the deportations where Obama deported 3 million people? You're saying Joe Biden was instrumental in dealing with that? You should go back and listen to what Biden, Clinton, and Obama was saying on the debate stage about immigration, making the very specific argument that sounds a lot like Trump. You got to keep these people from coming to the country. You got to make it difficult for them when they come into the country. Otherwise, you're creating an incentive to send more people to the country. Go back and look at those debates. The Democratic Party are hollering about it now, but they weren't sounding like that a few years ago.
Pulling troops out of Iraq and negotiating that and working as perhaps the lead point man on that effort. I think that I know very well what Joe's position was, because I answered those questions back in 2002, 2003, and 4. And it was very clear that what we were doing was listening to a president who made a pledge that he was going to do diplomacy, that he was going to exhaust diplomacy, build a coalition. And ultimately, we learned, as Joe did and I did, that the intelligence was distorted. So Joe spoke out and criticized. Joe was against what they were doing. The vote was not a vote specifically to go to war. It was a vote for the president to have leverage with respect to getting Saddam Hussein back to the negotiating table, back to the inspections, excuse me. And I think we were let down, and Joe has said many times that it was a mistake, obviously, to trust the words of the administration who didn't follow through on what they said they were going to do.
So you're saying he had poor judgment. You're saying he had poor judgment. He had poor judgment. And again, I make the point here that John Kerry is lying through his teeth. Video after video after video of Joe Biden backing up that war. It only, after a period of time, he might have turned on it. But this notion that he was against it from the beginning is utter nonsense. And what John Kerry is saying here, in order to back up his buddy, sad, very sad. Just say it was a mistake and move on. this notion I was against it in the beginning just adds a lie onto it, putting that much more emphasis on the fact that you realize there's a problem here. Let me finish.
And I invite you to go back, read my speech on the floor and others where I said this is not a vote specifically to let the
It
president
doesn't
go
matter
to
what
war.
you said. I don't care what you said. And understand what I mean by this. When these guys are selling this war, they're not selling it as we're going to go to war to do X. But certainly they have ideas on what these certain resolutions means. They have this notion of there's an understanding of it that goes beyond what you're talking about from the standpoint of the public. They're not going out and tell the public we're going to go to war. No, that would be weird for you to do. You would go out and tell the public they were seeking for peaceful resolution to this. We're going to work through the UN. You're going to tell the public all that stuff. But the reality of it is, what do you believe and what do you know is going to take place as a result of what of that particular vote or that particular plan of action? Biden knew that this was going to be a war. He understood that in order to remove Saddam, you're going to have to potentially stay. So, you know, all of this revisionist history stuff, just own it. Yes, I made a mistake with that vote. And you move on. But as opposed to John Kerry having to defend Joe Biden with this notion of, I was against it after I was for it. I was against it immediately. No, that's not true. That's just a lie. And by the way, don't even take my word for it. Even CNN is like, whoa, that's too far even for us. Fact check. Biden dishonestly suggests he opposed the Iraq war from the beginning. Biden again dishonestly, essentially, Biden lies again about his support for the Iraq war. I just wanted to make this plain. I saw John Kerry do this and I was like, oh, dude, that's embarrassing. But it's great that you and Joe Biden are together since you had a failed campaign for president. Also, Joe Biden is just another John Kerry or another Hillary Clinton. I call him a dumber version of it. No debate opinion coverage. Rob, yeah, that's coming next. This was already set up. Love the new set, Jamal. Looks great. Oh, thank you, Wesley. Yeah, Rob, the debate stuff is next. This video had been queued up yesterday, so I wanted to do it since everything was already loaded. I'll be back in a moment. I have a hypothesis on Warren that I think is dead on. And I think makes all the sense in the world considering what we've seen over the last few days. It failed, by the way, which he's attempted. It failed in some part, but it succeeded in others. And I'll explain it. Like, share, and subscribe.